Have you noticed that a lot of people today just don't get Christianity? And it seems that the more we talk, the less they seem to understand. For centuries, sharing the gospel was more like harvesting fields that were already plowed and watered. People had some church background, they had shared vocabulary, at least a basic sense of what Christians believed and even who Jesus was. But today, we're often starting from scratch. Many of our neighbors, coworkers, even some family members have never attended church. They don't speak our churchy Christian language. They see Christianity as just another religion, pretty much the same as all the others. So how can we reach them with the gospel? A few days ago, I was doing a major cleanup in my office, including pulling all the books off the shelves and vacuuming the dust off. Thanks to Kristen for a lot of help with that. I was calling out the books that I no longer wanted or thought I needed. I came across this 30-year-old piece, and when I flipped through it, looking at my marks and notes, I realized that despite its age, many of the author's insights are still spot on. The first chapter is about helping church people, helping Christians understand what secular people are like. Secular people meaning non-church people who don't understand Christianity or the Bible or the Christian subculture. If we're going to reach them, we need to see the world through their eyes, or at least understand how they see the world. And then as we begin to understand their worldview, the lenses through which they see and evaluate everything, including us and our beliefs, we can begin to pray for them and share the gospel in ways that will actually connect with them. So we're going to take a look at 10 common traits of secular people and how those traits change the way, or should change the way, we approach evangelism today. Before I get into the list of 10, let's understand this. These secular people may be agnostics. They don't know what we believe. They may be notional Christians, people who think they're Christian because they see the culture as more or less Christian. They might be nominal Christians who might even go to church sometimes, but who are not believers or followers of Jesus. Now, these people are not necessarily less religious or less spiritually inclined than you are or than I am. They're just more distant from Christianity. George Hunter III, who wrote the book, How to Reach Secular People, made this important observation. For centuries, the church was harvesting grain in fields already plowed, already seeded, and already watered. But today we must first plow, seed, and water fields before we can reasonably expect to gather harvests. And to do that, we need to understand who we're trying to reach. These 10 traits we're going to look at are generalizations. They don't describe every single secular person in detail. And these traits are not an exhaustive list. There are, of course, many other traits and features of those who are not followers of Jesus. But these ideas got my wheels turning, and I expect to help you as well in your personal evangelism. And by the way, if you've seen our video on interviewing normal people, hopefully a link there, and actually done some of the interviews, you will already be well on your way. So let's go. 10 traits of secular people. Do you see these traits in anyone you know and are trying to reach? Number 1, they are essentially ignorant of basic Christianity. They don't know the language. They might not know the traditions, the theology, the history of the church, Christianity. They don't understand the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, the broad flow of the story of Scripture. They don't know about the relationship between Judaism and Christianity, and they have no idea how radically different Christianity is from other religions. They see religion as a category, not Christianity as a category. Number 2, they're seeking life before death. A lot of evangelism in the last few decades of the 20th century into the 21st focused on what we jokingly refer to as fire insurance, making sure you didn't go to hell. Well, people still, of course, have a fear of death that we might need to address at some points. We also need to recognize there is a fear of a meaningless life that many carry. It's not so much a fear of death, but a fear of getting up Monday morning and wondering why they're doing what they're doing. Does it matter? What's the point? Is there a purpose? They want life to matter. Number 3, they are conscious of doubt more than guilt. They wonder what's true, if in fact there is truth. how to know the truth rather than obsessing about how to have their sin dealt with and get right with God. That's not on the radar. It's not that we don't get around to the sin issue. We've got to. It is the issue. But we can't just start there like we could in the past when people were churched, or at least aware of the basic idea of sin and judgment. Number 4, they have a negative image of the church. The church/Christians are often portrayed in popular culture and often seen as unintelligent, irrelevant, especially to the real world and its issues. But if these people could meet some genuine, thoughtful followers of Jesus Christ, people whose faith in life is about more than just politics, their opinion of Christianity and Jesus will begin to change. Number 5, they have multiple alienations. They're not just separated from God, but they might have a broken family. They might not have any good friends. They might feel like they don't fit in anywhere. They have no one to call at 2 a.m. when they're in a crisis. The gospel and the church, the true community of followers of Jesus Christ, can address so many of those alienations. Number 6, they are untrusting. They're untrusting and suspicious of people in general, of marketers, of politicians, of authority figures, and of course, institutions, including the church, organized religion. They might be distrusting and suspicious of you, thinking you've got an agenda that will harm them. Now, you might have an agenda, but the agenda is to introduce them to someone who can inject some meaning and purpose and joy into their life. Number 7, they may have low self-esteem. Now, that low self-esteem is kind of a function of evolutionary theory. Basically, the idea that everything's by chance, you're just a result of a whole bunch of accidents. Where do you get meaning from that? And this low self-esteem is made worse by social media, where we see people not just at their best, but even at their artificial best. And our lives, compared to what we see online, just look so pathetic. They find it hard to accept that they're loved unconditionally. Now, there's a danger in seeing low self-esteem as the ultimate problem, as their biggest problem. It's not. One famous preacher from the past, that was his thesis. Our big problem is sin, separation from God. But for some, even if they think there is a God, they're pretty sure he doesn't see them or know them or care for them. And yet the greatest answer to low self-esteem is understanding that they've been created in the image of God for relationship with him. Number 8, they see history, including politics, the environment, the economy. They see it all as completely out of control. They look around and it feels like no one's in charge, that everything is random. Hopelessness, meaninglessness are a small step from that perspective. When things are out of control, that's the recipe for stress. That's the recipe for despair. Number 9, they feel that they themselves are somewhat out of control. They might from time to time lose it emotionally, getting really sad or getting really angry. They might not be able to control their behavior all the time. They might be overwhelmed with problems. They might be fighting addictions. They may believe that no matter what they do or how hard they work, they can never better themselves or break out of an endless cycle of meaningless activity. Isn't it interesting that one aspect of the fruit of the Spirit is self-control? Jesus has something to say to this lack of control. Number 10, they can't find the door. They're searching for something, but they might not know what it is they're searching for, and they certainly don't know how to find it. Picture someone in a large pitch black warehouse trying to find a way out through a maze of barrels and boxes and crates. That's the picture. But we know that Jesus is the door. And we can have the privilege of pointing them to the door, showing them how to walk through it. Do you see anyone you know in these descriptions of secular people? If we're going to reach them, we've got to, number 1, have a sense of how they see the world and how they see Jesus. And number 2, we need to start seeing them the way Jesus sees them, not as projects to fix, but as people made in God's image, infinitely valuable, who are lost and often confused, searching for meaning, and yet they've been created to have a relationship with their Creator. Jesus looked at crowds of people like this, and he felt compassion, and he took action. Who is one person in your world who doesn't get Christianity? Start or keep praying for them by name. Listen to them. Maybe do the normal person interview. Care for them. And be ready for the questions and be ready for the opportunities to share what Jesus has done for you and what Jesus wants to do for them. Cultivating and planting, watered by prayer and the work of the Spirit, leads to reaping. Join Jesus on his mission to seek and to save the lost.